Everybody here? I can see everybody. How could I see everybody?
Gallery view? You have gallery view, Huguette?
Ah, thank you. I get help here at home, you know.
Good.
Thank goodness I have helpers.
Okay, it's over to you, Huguette.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. It's so nice to see all of you. And I would like, first of all, to acknowledge that we are on the unceded territory on land that was stolen, and that we commit to the true reconciliation in acknowledging the past history and hopefully working on redress together. And I know that I didn't particularly mention any tribal, indigenous, because we all are on different territories. I personally am on the Semi-Yamo land, so I know some people are on the Squamish land. So each one will take what they are seated on. So tonight we are talking about the whole refugee title, which is Are Refugees Good for Canada? And at first, I would like to review a little bit of the history of UCV involvement with refugees, the Unitarian Church of Vancouver. And then I will talk a little bit about how I came to be part of it. But most importantly, we're going to have Ammar and Shaya and Katie. And Ammar, who arrived not too long ago from Turkey, a refugee from Syria, and he's going to talk to us about his story. And so will Shaya. And Katie is one of the sponsors of Shaya with us. So they will both talk about their experience. So first, I would like to, and then I will go back to the question, are refugees good for Canada? And I will let you know about a very good study that has been done going back to 1980. 1 million refugees that have been studying to see how they have actually settled in Canada. So first of all, maybe not everybody is familiar with the Canadian system. I think it's very, very briefly. The Canadian system has a very unique system for sponsoring refugees. There is a government-sponsored refugees, which are part of the whole yearly allocations. And then there is the private sponsorship. And the private sponsorship can be a sponsorship agreement holder. We have an agreement with the government, and we can put applications in, and they give us a number of allocations. Each one, there is 18 in BC, and there is about 130 throughout Canada. So they allocate us number of people that we can actually bring, and depending on the overall number. And then there is some in between, which is the blended, which is half government is paying half of the year, and we look after everything else and pay the other half of the year. And then there is a JAS, which is a joint assisted. And the joint assisted is that the government pays all the expenses and the allowances, and we take care of the settling them. So Unitarian Church of Vancouver got involved actually quite early in refugee work. Between 79 and 82, there were 4 families of Vietnamese that were boat people that they looked after. 1986, 1990, then they actually established a refugee support committee. And at that time, they were a constituent of CUC, which is the Canadian Unitarian Council. And they brought 2 families between 1997 and 2002, 1 Burmese family. 2003, 2004, they helped a Togolese refugee to bring his family over, which some of you know, because sometimes he has been playing at our services. And eventually they were reunited. 2005 to 2009, an Eritrean young woman, who some of you know, Wenta. And she was actually a jazz refugee. And the reason she was a jazz refugee, usually they are extremely vulnerable refugees. She was a young adolescent, young woman all by herself. So she needed a family, and so she needed some extra. So she was a jazz refugee. Then we co-sponsored with a family here about their family, an Afghan young family of 3. And then we brought a Karen family of 3. Between 2009, 2015, Tibetan family of 4, and then 14 Palestinians, 1 single, 2 families, etc., but overall 14. Between 2015 and 2019, that was the big year because this was the Syrian, crisis. And Canada decided to really increase their refugee count to bring more people. So that was a big year, and a lot of them were blended, so that it allowed us, because we needed less money, allowed us to bring a lot of families. There was no no allocations. We could bring anybody that we wanted as long as we could support them. So actually we brought around 40 people then. And then in 2019, because with our experience with the Syrian, the 40 people, they have family that are still back in the camps, or refugees, and they want to bring their family. So we needed allocations, but we were a constituent of CUC, which means that they get the allocation and then they distribute it. So, but with their support, and and also with following on Halifax, who became their own sponsorship agreement holder, we did the same. We applied for the same. So now, in September 2019, we became our own sponsorship agreement holder, which allows us to ask for our own numbers, our own allocations, and we can get more. So we received right away 10 allocation, which we have filled, and right away. And then in 2020, we actually got 50 allocations. So we put application for 50 people. And also we work with the Rainbow Society, and they have their own allocations. So through that, we brought 3. So we brought overall we applied overall for 2020, 53 people. Of course, with COVID, as you can imagine, things have slowed down a great deal. So although the applications are in, there is no interviews happening. What they're trying to do right now is actually to bring people. They're trickling in, and an example, obviously, Shaya and Ammar, who arrived through the COVID virus, which they had to quarantine and so on. And so coming to 2020, we asked for 70 allocation. So realize 1 allocation is 1 person. So if you have a family of 6, you need 6 allocations. So we asked for 70, and already, like they did last year, they gave us 25 right off the bat. And then at the end of the month or March, they will let us know how many more. We might not get 70, but that's what we asked for. So we only had, the impact of COVID has been quite important. We had only, before the lockdown, we had one mom and her daughter that arrived. And then since then we have had Shaya and then Ali, and then a family of 4. So that's the only people that we have been able to bring in 2020. And so a little bit about myself. Well, I'm French, and I grew up in France. I grew up on a farm, and I went to boarding school. Now, in boarding school at that time, we had a lot of refugees from Poland, Romania, Hungary, Russia, and they came to my school. So I got kind of interested and, intrigued, and, and they seemed very lonely sometimes. So got to know them a little bit. And then at university, I realized that a lot of the people that I culturally, like singers and poets and literature, and a lot of them were actually refugees from Spain, from Italy, from Greece, all these people that, so that I realized even more about refugees. And then I was in Lebanon, and I lived next to a Palestinian camp, and for about 6 months. And so I went to visit Palestinian camp, and that's when I decided, that was in 1970, that's when I decided that one day I will get involved. And then I went to Guatemala, and there, right before Rios Monte dictatorship started, so I became very aware after of the harm and also the flood of refugees that went to Chiapas, down Mexico. And of course, I was living with, especially for the indigenous people that were particularly targeted. And it was very, very emotional for me because I knew some of these people. I had lived with them. I had I had worked with them, practiced with them, and as a doctor. And so I think I became more and more aware. So then I right away went into the refugee committee and have not stopped because it's so rewarding. So that's me. So now it's Ammar turn.
Thank you, Huguette. Since this meeting is all about being a refugee and if they're good for Canada or not, I'm going to be sharing the story of the refugee part of my life. Once I decided to move Syria when it was the right time for me to do it and everything was ready, I left from Damascus to Aleppo to a place called Idlib. This is when I met the smuggler. So the smuggler, when I first arrived there, the area was where the smuggler was. It was controlled by the Syrian Free Army, which means a lot of weapons, a lot of armed people, which was not safe to stay. So when I first arrived there, and after like an hour, he was like, there will be a group of people crossing the borders after an hour. Do you want to join them? And I was really tired to say yes, but when I looked around me and I was like surrounded by armed people, I was like, I can't stay here. So I said, okay, I'm gonna try join them. So they knew each other. There were a group of 7. I didn't know them. They were staying there at this city for like a few days or something. So they had a plan. I didn't know any of them. I just joined them. They put us in a black van, and the van went into the top of a mountain. They told us that you need to jump. Like the fan can't stop. The van can't stop. You're gonna have it's gonna slow down, and you're gonna have to jump from the van. So we did, and then we started crossing the borders from Syria to Turkey, across the mountains on feet. It was really dark, and the only thing that you can see was the foot of the person crossing in front of you. The path was really steep, and I don't know, there was like water. It was too dark, so nobody could see anything. And then when we started getting closer to Turkey, this is when the leader was like, this is when you need to be careful, because this is when we're gonna have to face the Turkish police and the Turkish army. And so some of you will gonna make it, some of you will gonna be sent home. So now whatever happens, it's on you. And then we started the last part of the journey, and we were the Turkish army, or the border guards, saw us, and they started shooting at us, and they were starting saying something in Turkish, and then they sent their dogs. And I looked around me, and then I found myself alone. The 7 people just disappeared. I had no idea where they go. And I found myself alone in the wild, not knowing what to do. My mind told me to turn myself in to the Turkish forces, and then they will send me back to Syria, and maybe I'll try again, because in my opinion, that was the best solution. But then my foot kept on running and running and running. And I heard the prayer. I heard the morning prayer. And this is when I knew I'm not too far from Turkey. There's a city over there, and I can hear the prayer. So I started running toward the mosque, and I started seeing lights. And this is when I knew, okay, this is Turkey. I'm not giving up right now. They were shooting, they were running after us, the dogs were chasing us. I didn't care. I didn't even look back. I just followed the light. And then I found a pavement. And then this is when I knew, okay, now I'm in Turkey. Then what? Like, I hid in a building, and I waited for the border guards to, like, I lost them. And then now what? I didn't have a cell phone. I did have a cell phone. I didn't have a SIM card, but I knew somebody who was not far from this city. I could have just called him, and he would come and pick me up, but I just needed a phone. So I decided to go to the mosque and try to find somebody who was willing to help me. But apparently people, when they saw me, they started like moving away from me. I just didn't understand what was going on. But then I looked at myself, and apparently I was covered with mud, and my thigh was cut, and I was bleeding. When did I get hurt? How did that happen? I have no idea. Oh, and my pants were torn. So I looked like a mess. So yeah, I didn't blame them. I would have run away from myself back then. So I was left. I didn't know exactly what to do. But then in Ramadan, there's a guy who knock on drums to wake up people. So I decided to approach and try to communicate with him, to convince him that I need his phone. I need to call somebody. I didn't speak Turkish. He didn't speak English. He didn't speak Arabic either. We kind of like communicated in sign language. And then he was like, follow me. And then I was like, should I follow him? Where am I going? But I did follow him. And then he took me to a house, and the owner, they had a fight. the guy who helped me and the owner of the house, apparently they're not supposed to bring Syrian refugees into their houses because there's a fine and they can be sent to jail. At the beginning, he was really angry and he was shouting, but then I was like, I'm a doctor and this is my ID and I'm here to try and see my family. Well, my family was in Syria, but I had to come up with something. And then he was like, okay, are you hungry? And I was like, yes, I'm really hungry. So he put some food and then he gave me shorts and he was like, just change your pants, go wash your feet, and then I'll try to get you to your friend. And I was like, okay, thank you, but can I use your phone? And he said, no, we don't have a signal in here. I was like, but everybody has a cell phone. He wouldn't let me use his phone. This is when it started getting really creepy. Why? Why can't I use your phone? And then he was like, okay, go to sleep. And in the morning, we'll find somebody to help you. And yes, in the morning, they brought a smuggler who asked for $200 to bring me to that city. And it was like, we have a period of 15 minutes to 10 to 15 minutes where the police will be busy after the Friday prayer. So you have to be ready. If we didn't leave at this period of time, then you're going to have to wait until next Friday. So I decided to pay him, and and then he drove me, and then I met my friend. So my mom communicated called the smuggler back in Syria, and she was like, "What happened? We haven't heard anything." And he was like, "Well, I don't know, to be honest, but everybody made it to Turkey except for Ammar. Ammar is missing." And in Syria, when you hear somebody is missing, it means like he's missing forever. And they went crazy and they thought I was dead. And once I got to my friend's house, I connected my phone to the Wi-Fi and I called them and they were like, "You're alive." And I was like, "Yeah. What were you expecting?" And she was like, "Well, we thought that something bad happened to you because the smuggler told us that everybody made it except for you." I was like, "Well, this is what happened. And this is how I got to Turkey." Now, when I got to Turkey, I was planning on crossing the borders all the way to Germany, just like everybody did. But then I met somebody who convinced me that there are other alternatives. Like you risk your life to get out from Syria and you survive. That doesn't mean you're going to survive the next trip. So I decided to apply for the UNHCR. But in Turkey, in order to apply for the UNHCR, you have to be registered at the Turkish government as a refugee. So I tried so hard to get registered in Turkey. It was really hard, and it took me almost 8 months to be registered. And then when I got registered, the thing in Turkey that the Turkish government is the one that refers people to the UNHCR. So the Turkish government picks the people that gets referred to the UNHCR, except for some of the few cases, special cases that can be referred through an NGO. I went into an NGO and I communicated with them and I was referred to the UNHCR and I had my first interview with the UNHCR and it was great. But then the UNHCR were supposed to communicate with the Turkish government, and then I had to have an interview with the Turkish government to see if they're okay with me leaving or not. But this didn't happen, and we waited for a few months, and we didn't hear anything from the Turkish government. So this is when the UNHCR told me about the sponsorship, the private sponsorship agreement holders, and they told me, probably we haven't heard back because you're a doctor. Like well-educated people are not allowed or are not easy to get a permission from the Turkish government because the UNHCR can't do anything in Turkey except without the agreement of the Turkish government. And at least for the Syrian people, at least for Syrian, I don't know about other people. So this is when I started writing emails and sending emails to sponsorship agreement holders. I went into the website and I started emailing. I think I emailed all the sponsorship agreement holders, and most of the responses were like, we have enough refugees, we don't have enough room, we're gonna have to wait for like 3 years. But then I don't know if you know him, Andy Blair.
Andy,
Andy read the email, and then he communicated with me telling me, are you still looking for sponsors? And I was like, who are you? Because it's like he was communicating with me like through his Skype privately. So I thought it's a scam. I thought it's something, because it's not an organization, it's a person. So he introduced himself, and he told me that he's willing to help me if I'm still looking for sponsors. Then he has sponsors for me. I was gonna be sponsored to Halifax, but I don't know, something didn't work. And then Andy didn't give up. He sent my file to Montreal, and this is when they started the fundraising in Montreal. But then I don't know, for some reason, again in Quebec, it didn't work. So Andy brought my file to Vancouver Island, or I don't know, Vancouver Island. And this is when my group of sponsors were like, well, he was talking about me to my sponsors, and they were like, why don't we sponsor him? Well, I think the Unitarians in here, the Unitarian Church in here, is not a sponsorship agreement holder. It's they struggled a lot with finding a sponsorship agreement holders. They have to go to Victoria. So my group of sponsors are Unitarians, but my sponsorship agreement holder is the Intercultural Society of Victoria. It worked at the end, and I'm here in Canada. I'm really thankful to the. Before I end my time, I'm gonna answer one of your questions. You said, "Well, is refugee good for Canada?" I would say refugees for Canada are better than immigrants, because so in my situation, like, I was trapped in Turkey, and my only exit was this sponsorship agreement program. If it wasn't for him, the UNHCR couldn't help me. So I would stay my life. I would have to spend my whole life in Turkey as a refugee. So and then Canada opened her doors to me, and then it was the only country that accepted me as a refugee and provided me with a whole new life. So a lot of people would tell me that since it's really hard to be licensed here in Canada and to be working as a doctor again in Canada, why don't you just wait until you get the Canadian passport? And then you can travel to the UK, you can travel to the US, and then you can work as a doctor over there. But for me, I feel like I don't really want to do that, because like when the UK and the US didn't take me when I needed them, Canada is the country that took me when I needed. So I really owe that to Canada. So if I'm going to work as a doctor, then I would really want it to be here in Canada. And if I couldn't work as a doctor here in Canada, then I need to work as anything here in Canada. One of the things that people don't understand is being a refugee means you're nothing. Like when I was in Turkey, I couldn't travel between city, and I was discriminated, and people would just hang up on me and not even answer my questions. And getting a place to live was really hard because I'm a Syrian single guy. And then everything, like I was kind of like living in a prison. But now I feel like I can start over. Like here in Canada, I can become a citizen. Well, when I arrived, when I first arrived, I told them that I'm a refugee from Syria. And they said, okay, you have to forget about this word. You're not a refugee anymore. Now you're considered a permanent resident. And this is when I was like, oh my God, that's true. Like I'm no longer a refugee. Now I have an ID. I can become a person again. So I'm really happy that Canada took me.
And we're happy to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Of course.
Lynn, should we wait for the questions at the end, maybe?
Sorry, yeah, let's hear from Shaya about her
Yeah.
story, and then we'll open it up for some questions.
Shaya
And Katie.
and Katie.
Yeah.
Shaya lives with Katie.
Yes.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm so glad to see you. I'm Shaya. I'm an Iranian trans woman. And I'd like to say some part of my story. Everybody know living for LGBTQ community in Iran is so difficult because government and social and families don't accept LGBTQ child and rainbow kids. And because of my loud problems, I decided to leave my country, and I left my country in 2016 and I went to Turkey. I had not any idea about Turkey, but I had some of friends in Turkey as a refugee, as a LGBT. I went to UNHCR office in Ankara, and I said I'm a trans woman, and I left my country, and they accept me because they know about LGBTQ community in Iran. After 4 or 5 months, I took my UNHCR license as fast, and I was waiting for going to another country. But Canada didn't accept in that time, didn't accept any refugee, and especially Iranian refugee in 2016. But UNHCR said to me, you can go to USA and we can send your documentary to USA embassy, and I accept that. And when I went to one of interview for USA embassy, it's not embassy, it's an office calls ICMC, and refugees have 2 ICMC for going to USA. When I went to ICMC number 1, President Trump came and canceled all of things with travel ban for Iranian and another countries. And me and my another friend and all of refugees in Turkey waited a long time. But do you know, refugees in Turkey have not allowed for working, like work permit. We had not work permit for doing something or take a job and another thing. But I had a job because I need to money for organize my life and for pay my rent and buy some food and another things. But um, one night, police came to our workplace, and took me. And after 3 days, they uh, decided to deport me to Iran. But uh, I am a I am an activist for LGBTQ community, and it's not good for Iranian government. And in Iran, government can kill homosexual peoples and sometimes transgenders peoples. And that was so dangerous for me for come back to Iran. Um, I was my friends in Denizli. I was in Denizli. It's a city in Turkey. My friends and some of lower helped me and didn't allow to police deport me to Iran. But I was in a prison for 1 month. I'm so sorry. I don't know the word is true or not. Prison.
Yeah, jail.
Yeah, jail. And I was in jail for 1 month. And after that, I could come back to my city and to my home. But refugees in Turkey must sign every week or every month in immigrate office or immigrate police. But after this happened, police said to me, you must come here every day for sign, and we want to see you every day in same time, for example 3 p.m. And I went to police office for sign around 2 years after that happened, every day in same time. And I couldn't do something as a job, and I couldn't go out of my city without law and blah blah blah. Uh, but after 2 or 3 years, I tried to do something for myself, and I um, heard about a sponsorship in Canada, and I tried to do some things for that. I sent email to um, a rainbow refugee communities in Canada. I sent email to a lot of rainbow refugees in Canada, but um, one or two of these communities answered me. One of the communities was I think in Halifax or Montreal, and Andy answered me and called me. But Andy tried to uh, accept me for Montreal and asked me, you want to come to Montreal? And I said, yes, I want to come because I have a lot of legal problem for Turkish government. And I had a open documentary with government. And if judge give me a bad answer about this documentary, I must come back to Iran, and it's so dangerous for me. And Andy tried to do some things, but UNHCR called to us and say, "Oh, we want to send you to Canada from UNHCR, from government, and I accept that, and I was so happy. Oh, it's okay, I can go to Canada. And I say to Andy, oh, my work is okay and my job is okay, and I'm going to Canada from UNHCR. And I canceled this process with Andy. But after 1 year, UNHCR said, oh, we are not sure about Canada. So maybe another country, maybe another place. And I said, oh my goodness, I canceled my sponsorship process. And I sent an email again to Andy. Oh, Andy, I'm so sorry because UNHCR doesn't send me to Canada and it's canceled. And Andy said, do you have any friends or family in Vancouver or another place? And I said, I have friends to Vancouver, but my friend was refugee and they can't be a sponsor for me. And I think Andy spoke with you, with Unitarian Church, and in 1 or 2 weeks, you accept me, and I connected with you with Huguette and Naomi. I sent email to you, and I was so happy. I was so happy for coming to Canada. And this process, I think this process was 1 year, and I had a flight in April, and because of COVID, that it's canceled. And again, I came to Canada in September, and I'm so happy, and I am so thankful from you. And now I have kind sponsors, and they are my friends now, not just a sponsor. And thank you for all of things. I'm safe here because I was not safe in my own country, and I was not safe in Turkey too, because Turkish people culture is close, and same with Iran. And they can't accept LGBTQ kids. And we had a hard and bad situation in Turkey too. And I am so sad for a lot of my friends. They are in Turkey yet. And hopefully they can leave Turkey and go to a safe country and start the new life. Thank you.
Thank you, Shaya, so much. Thank you. I know people are going to have questions, and I know we were going to turn to Katie if you wanted, 2 or 3 minutes on your experience as a host. And then as people have questions, if you could use the reactions tab at the bottom of your screen, there's a place where you can click raise hand. And if I do that, you'll see my gold hand pops up there on my screen. And that's a way of saying that you'd like to speak or ask a question, and we can take them in order. So Katie, over to you for just 2 or 3. Okay, Huguette, was there something?
I will need about 2 minutes to get feedback on the study.
Before or after the questions?
No, well, either that, either before or after.
Okay, thanks. So Katie, 2 or 3 minutes. How has it
Yes.
been for you?
Well, Shaya is the second refugee that I've sponsored. The first refugee was a man from Syria who had also smuggled across the border to Lebanon. And we had 5 sponsors working together with him. And 4 of those sponsors and an additional 8 sponsors joined, or I mean, additional 4 sponsors for a total of 8 joined for Shaya. I think that the reason refugees are important to Canada, it gives us a lot of hope. allows us to express our empathy. And on a personal level, I had myself come to Canada about 22 years ago, not exactly as a refugee, but something similar from the United States with my same-sex partner from France. Neither country would accept the other partner, and Canada took us on a humanitarian and compassionate visa for us to settle here. So out of our 8 sponsors of Shaya, only one was a person who is born in Canada. And so it's allowed us to kind of give back in a way and kind of feel more Canadian as we welcome a new Canadian. Then we're like the established Canadians showing a newcomer, you know, to our country and joining us. And I feel the caliber of the people that we've sponsored. You know, they've just been very dynamic, ready to go, happy to be here, remarkably resilient and untraumatized, which I'm a psychiatric social worker, so I'm just finding, you know, I'm so actually quite stunned at the 2 refugees that we've sponsored, and we hear some of their experiences, but they somehow just managed to cope, put it behind them, and, you know, move forward. Our first refugee's working full time. He's just gotten a new job where he, you know, where he has like a whole lot of potential for a really good career. Shaya is extremely inspirational. She has about 30,000 followers in the Iranian diaspora, and also people currently living in Iran who look to her for inspiration and hope. And she spends a lot of her day connecting with these people she calls rainbow kids, which are adolescents and young people who find that they're discovering that they're part of the LGBT community, but very, you know, as you heard her say, that could be a capital offense in Iran. And just to be able to give these people some hope, I feel just so honored to be in any small way contributing to her ability to do that by offering my home to her.
Mhm. Oh,
And Naomi, who's also on the call, you know, has been very significant. We're actually now fundraising for an entire family, which is a trans man, also from Iran, his wife, and their son, which is of course his stepson, who has a life-threatening medical condition. So and we also, again, I think thanks to Andy or Rainbow Refugee, I applied and we were accepted for this fellowship where every donation gets matched 100% by the Shapiro Foundation. So if any donations that we get until April are matched 100% to resettle this upcoming family. So if anybody finds it in their heart to give a donation, I'm happy to explain to you how to do that. But anyway, no, Shaya is wonderful.
I don't want to, I don't want to
loving
interrupt you at all, but
having her.
I just want to thank you. I'm hoping you can stay on the call after 8, because what
Sure.
we're going to do now is take a quick question from Cynthia and then over to Huguette. We're going to take a break at 8 for 2 minutes and then come back for more informal discussion. And we'd love to hear more about that, Katie. Thank you. Cynthia, would you like to go ahead with your question?
Yeah, thank you. My question is for Ammar, and I'm just really curious about your experience in Syria and what it was that you personally had to make that decision to leave.
Can we answer the question when it's not recorded? If that-
After 8.
Let's save
Okay.
that for
Okay.
after 8. Yeah, yeah. We're recording the first hour, but not the after.
I'm glad. I would definitely answer this question, but
Okay, so later, that's fine. I actually have another question, and it's for the Unitarian Church as a whole, or the whole committee that does this. Is it seems like an amazing number of people that you have sponsored. How do you get what is the sponsor when you say a person has 4 sponsors? Do they actually come up with all the money, or is it all fundraising, or how do you manage?
Yeah, well, yeah. Okay, can I answer that question?
Yeah, over to you, Huguette.
Yes, we have to support, except in exceptional cases like the blended one and the Rainbow Society. We have to be able to support them, and there is a certain amount of money that we need to have, and so we need to fundraise. And very often the families that are here fundraise themselves for their family members, or a bunch of people get together, like Katie and her group. They get together and they fundraise when they have, almost all the money. Like the immigration, the government is getting a lot more, and it's going to get a lot more picky about, like they're going we are going to have to prove that we have the money, to support them for a year, which is really a problem because sometimes it takes 2 years for them to come. So how can we ask people to get their money stuck for 2 years? They could use it for something else. So it's a little tricky. Before I was a lot more flexible and say, okay, if I could get a commitment, and I trust people really. And they say, yes, we will have the money. Then I will wait until we were sure that, that person would come, and then they would give the money, and then we would, we definitely need to fundraise. And that's something we can talk about in the next half hour. But I would like a little bit to give you a little bit of a little bit of the study. So it's a study that UNHCR, by the way, is United Nations High Commission for Refugees. So that UNHCR Canada did, and they took, with the census of 2016, they took about 1 million refugees that had right from 1980. So they had a really good, over the years, how did the refugees did and what their children are doing. So I'll give you a very skeleton results. And they looked at for age between 25 and 54 for unemployment. So for the first few years, 9% of refugees were unemployed. 6% of the Canadian-born were unemployed. After in the next 5 years, they were equal. Everybody was 6%. Income for the first year, the income average was 20,000 for the refugees. After 5 years, the refugees had the same range of income as the Canadian-born. In terms of paying taxes, which is a big one, because I've heard so many times that refugees are taking money from us, that they cost us money. They found that refugees pay more income tax than they actually have received as benefits or services. So they pay their taxes, and in amount that is not detrimental to Canadian-born. The skill levels, the breakdown is interesting because 30% have college apprenticeship level, 33% high school, job specific, 21% have actually management and the professional level, and 16% have on-the-job training. In terms of interesting entrepreneurship, as far as entrepreneurs are concerned, 14% of the refugees have entrepreneurs, compared to 12% from Canadian-born. So they are really entrepreneurs. The aging population, of course, huge difference. We need them because 57% of refugees are between 25 and 54 versus only 38% of the Canadian-born. So a lot more young people in the refugees population. Settling everywhere, they settle anywhere, everywhere in Canada. Home ownership, after 10 years, 65% of refugees have ownership of a home or something, and 79% of Canadian-born. A sense of belonging, which is one interesting one. 95% of refugees feel they belong. Only 91% of Canadian-born feel the same way. Citizenship uptake. So people that take up the citizenship, because Ammar was right, and they are not refugees anymore. As soon as they come to Canada, they are permanent residents, just like I was when I came to Canada, as well as an immigrant. So 88% take up the citizenship, 84% of the economic immigrant class, and 80% of the family immigrant class. So refugees are the ones that take up the most the citizenship compared with the other people that come to Canada. Now, how about the refugee children? Well, they do very well. So starting with no certificate, diploma, or degree, the Canadian-born are 11%. The refugee are only 8.9% that don't have a diploma compared with the Canadian-born. I found that surprising, but interesting. High school diploma, 24.9% of Canadian-born have high school diploma, 24.1% of refugee children have high school diploma. Apprenticeship and trade, 12.5% versus 7%. College, university, that's where it's interesting. 27% of Canadian-born have college, university diploma versus 28% for refugees. Bachelor degree, 18% versus 25% for refugees. And then master or doctorate, 5.5% versus 6.4% for refugees, children. So I leave you to the conclusion.
Thank you, Huguette. Thank you so much. We're at 8 o'clock, and so what I want to do is thank our guests. I want to thank everyone for being here.